We're an Instacart family.
Oh my goodness, we saved so much time with same-day grocery delivery.
So we joined Instacart Plus.
And now we're saving more money.
We get unlimited free delivery on orders over $35,
5% credit back on pickup,
and a family account to shop together.
Did you know members save $460 a year when they order at least once a week?
I do now. See how much you'll save. Visit instacartplus.com for 2 weeks free. Average savings exclude membership fee. Individual savings may vary. Credit back excludes alcohol. Paid membership auto renews. Additional terms apply.
Percolate on a particular mix of odd and inspiring news headlines in Wendy's Coffee House. Newsmakers with a penchant for the unknown, unexplained, and unusual share their experiences with UFOs, ghost encounters, near-death experiences, and more for your own unique blend of Wendy's Coffee House Curious. And now, here's Wendy.
Wendy's Coffee House. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, of course, we've got tons and tons of headlines and a lot of stuff going on. It's just me this time, so we're going to get into the stuff. And the reason I do these shows doesn't make all the national headlines. And some of that has to do with the fact that it's too quirky and they have no category or file or label to put it under except weird news. And there's a whole lot more than that. So with my own personal experiences, I got a ton of stuff to cover, but I also appreciate you connecting with me online. And the blog is where I post a lot of the stuff, Wendy's Coffee House, that I don't put on the air. And some of it, the recent stuff, was the missing 411 info from David Paulides. He does the 411 stuff. He doesn't really always connect it to Bigfoot, but it is. And on that same note, the people who are in charge of Board Camp Crystal Mine, Cheryl and Orville, are going to be here in town at another event, and I think it's Mysteries of the Universe coming up in Kansas City. Several events coming up in Kansas City that will be focusing on the unusual, unexplained. Casey Paracon is in the summer, and they've got that all set up right now. I think the 2 or 3 of the big speakers have been chosen. Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters, Dana and Greg Newkirk, who are also going to be there. That changes every day, so paracon.net. They also have coming up a really fun, it looks like, fun event, a guided paranormal investigation of the historic Mulebach Hotel. That's in Kansas City, and it's in conjunction with the Planet Comic-Con, March 20th through 22nd. That would be fascinating to take that little tour. In the meantime, getting ready for all of this, I had somebody who wanted to have one of their features. I do a lot of the videos that are sci-fi, and I do occasionally put a horror film or a feature on their short films. And this time, his is it's spooky. I'll just put it that way. And he said he got the idea as he was walking his dog. It's called Hazard. He's out walking the dog in the middle of the nowhere, and he sees a car with hazard lights on, and he's thinking, okay, does somebody have the car in? Are they in the car? Is there something I need to know about? He's walking the dog, and he realizes he's just a tad frightened. He goes up, there's nobody in the car. And he wasn't sure if he was more frightened there was somebody in it or not in it, but of course then the dog has to go potty, and he's with the dog staying there looking at the car and thinking, this is a perfect horror film idea. So there you go. But posted that on the blog Hazard. And he's actually an Emmy Award winner, Gyro Cuevas, and he works at Pixar Animation Studios. So anyway, that was a walk to remember. So you can check that out. And while this is happening and I'm posting these things, we're doing some work and I'm painting in a house that's empty. And my husband is painting downstairs and doing some other work downstairs. And I think he at that point was deconstructing some kind of tool cabinet and making lots of noise. And he had just told me he was going to have his headphones on and he wasn't going to hear anything. So he was off to do that job. And I'm painting. And a few minutes later, as I'm kind of lost in my own mind thinking about things and planning all sorts of big projects that may or may not come to fruition, I hear a voice that says, "Hun, can I get you anything?" And it's almost right beside me. And it's his voice. And I'm thinking, did he change his mind? Well, what's up? And so I know he told me he put headphones on. He was going to be, he wouldn't be able to hear me. And yet I get up and I go look to see if he's still painting or doing whatever it was, deconstructing the big cabinet downstairs. And sure enough, he's down there. He hasn't changed, and it wouldn't have been like him to just run off after he said something like that. So those are the kinds of things I get to experience. And then even though I know and have a sense that this isn't real, I still have to dot the I's and cross the T's, get up, go look. And this is when the ghost goes, ha, 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 made you look. They do have a sense of humor. So, but that part of it is why I'm so curious about other people's stories. And I know they're legit. And when I interviewed John Foster recently, and I've got 2 versions of that posted right now on the Audio Boom site where you can listen to the shows commercial free. I post them after the show airs. There's one on there that was not posted on the air. It's an hour-long version, and it is different than the one that ran on the air. So John Foster, he was 48 when he had memories, started to remember the UFO experiences that he'd been having with ET types, various different types of body types are in this. And he had 3 heart attacks because it was so shocking and so out of the ordinary and mind-blowing that he couldn't take it physically. So his physical body, and actually the ETs told him, you're going to have some issues with your heart. I think they called it because it was maybe the vein. They said the veins on his legs told him that would be coming up. Well, I think there was also more to it than that, but as a kid, that was probably what they thought he could digest. So when he did that, at the time, he had said he did not want to continue working with the program that they had going unless they gave him full disclosure and explained why they were doing this and basically doing a hidden program among humans on the planet. This guy's from Nebraska. Okay, so he's basically salt of the earth. He's an engineer, which means that he has the ability to draw some fantastic representations of what he remembers. So he's done that, and there are 3 books. And so I wanted to get his information because he's still talking about it. And when you are able to talk to somebody who's had a first-hand account, it's so much more real, it's so much more relevant and credible. And he'd actually been to Kansas City to make a presentation with one of the local groups here. And I thought, if there's anything that connects us, the fact that he's been in Kansas City, that he's from the Midwest, and that he's an engineer, and he's very real. He isn't somebody who's out there trying to make a living or a buck, trying to get everybody to believe his UFO theories. He's somebody who says, I don't know that I have an explanation for it. I do know what happened. I can explain it. I can document my own experience and give it to you. Some of the things that he said he was told in one of those experiences when he was a young child, there were 3 things that they told him, and this is on the website. He's been posting some of the newer links on his website with the things that he remembers, little excerpts from the book. So if you don't have the attention span to read an entire book or 3, then he's putting snippets on the John Foster UFOs blog. And so he said that ETs told him that there would be 3 things that he would see humans live without during his lifetime. And he saw pictures as these things manifested out of fog, small mass of spinning fog right in front of him. It develops and gives him something to look at. He saw a pipe stand, and so the pipes had tobacco, and he said he also saw a pack of cigarettes. Then he saw eyeglasses and a syringe, and there was a man talking to him. This is looking like a human guy. Humankind will learn to live without these things in your lifetime. And he was small enough, he didn't really know what everything meant. He knew that his folks smoked and wore glasses, so he knew what those things were. He wasn't sure about the syringe, and the man explained that some people used it for dope. Okay, so one way or the other, it means that those kinds of things, the ETs were saying they were going to go out of our experience. What we get from the experiencers, especially with him, is an idea that there's something else going on that we aren't all privy to. They even said they could make themselves invisible. They didn't have to be seen. And there were things that John describes, experiences where there were lots and lots of people around. Some remembered, some didn't, and some weren't even aware anything was happening. So it was like it was completely neutral. And to hear those descriptions and see that play out, it's just fascinating. So those are the things that I like to follow up on. In the headlines right now, some of the fun stuff that's happening, engineers create electric generator that runs on air. Really? Now, this always goes bad. Like when Tesla had the free energy thing, then something happened to Tesla, and there's all sorts of conspiracy theories about what happened there. But we can't find it. All the paperwork disappeared. It's all gone. So this is an article, and it's described in the journal Nature, this little piece of machinery. And engineers at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, say that this thing will work. It will be coming online soon. They even have a name for it, and they've named it. It's AirGen. And they need funding for development. Okay, well, that might be the catch. Anyway, so that's one of the amazing stories that's just right now available on the internet, of course. And then there's also this thing of DMT space exploration. And okay, if you don't know what DMT, ayahuasca, those kinds of things, There's a long name for it. Terence McKenna did a heck of a lot of up-close and personal research, and along with some of the other psychedelic researchers. What they're trying to do with this is to say that when they have these experiences, people who have gone into these really tripped out states come back with sometimes mind-altering positive revelations. And so they're wanting to recreate this so that people can also experience something in a positive way that says we don't have to be lockstep. And, they come back feeling love for all of humanity and wanting to do big things. And that's what they're hoping. Okay, the other thing with this is they want participants in psychedelic research. So if you're actually going to do it, then they would like you to participate and tell people what your results are. And I'll give that information in the next break. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Okay, they're looking for participants to help them with psychedelic research. Yes, and if that's you, you can do it anonymously. The deal with this is, well, we were talking earlier about the DMT, and Terence McKenna, do YouTube videos of him and find out why this is so important. John Lilly, he was the one who also researched with dolphins and had extraordinary experiences. Okay, there is a downside. So you don't want to go whole hog with this. You really have to be careful, and you have to have boundaries. And so I'm not advocating, but I'm telling you that they are interested in people who do have these experiences and who are willing to participate and share what they have discovered, good, bad, indifferent, the whole 9 yards. And this is in the UK, all right? So it's not a U.S. thing, so there's another aspect that might be helpful. If you plan to take a psychedelic in the near future, this is reading from their website information, see the Psychedelic Survey website and watch the video. This is Michael Pollan. He's on there telling you what the project is and how it will work. And then they collect data on the researchers, the experiences that they have. This is kind of like what's going on at the University of Missouri, where they have the overview effect. Right now, they're researching with float tanks, VR, virtual reality. You put the headset on, and you have the overview effect like the astronauts experienced in space while you're in a float tank. And I would do it, but they wanted people who'd never, ever had a float experience before as part of this project. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the results are. They want to know if by having this vicarious experience of having the VR environment with the float tank, and when you're in a float, if you've never done a float tank experience, it's really, it's worth trying at least one time. The problem is you have to do it more than once, because the first time you're acclimating, you're in a sensory deprivation tank, and it can either be a tank, which is, you don't feel claustrophobic. That's the first thing you have to, that's the first thing they get over, say, no. Just do it and you'll understand what we're talking about. But if that's a worry, they do float rooms. And Floating KC in Kansas City is where I go, and they have float rooms. They're large, like 8 by 10, and these are they're just an open space, and you have the light is dark, so it's completely dark, and then you also are in the water, and it's about, I can't remember how many pounds, of 1,500 or so of Epsom salts, enough that you're floating. You don't feel like you're going to sink. You're in there and you're suspended. And then the water temperature is body temperature. So it's a very interesting environment where the whole world is shut out. And they recommend it for some health issues, in addition to post-traumatic stress, as a way of, it's like enhanced meditation. And it's incredibly relaxing, because as you're breathing, you're supported, so you don't have the gravity holding you down. You're suspended there in that environment, and it's an amazing thing. Plus, with Floating KC, not everybody gets this. They have an anti-grav chair, zero gravity chair. What it is, it's a massage chair. All right, it's one of those high-dollar massage chairs. You do that before you go into the float tank, and it's like, whoa. Okay, so in that respect, just a float in itself is a little bit mind-altering, and I've had some really cool experiences. And one of the guys I've talked to about this, he's actually written a book that included the little bit of his experience of having an out-of-body experience and flying over a ball field. So anyway, you get the picture. It can induce an altered state, and what they're doing with the psychedelics is seeing if that altered state goes one step beyond, because you're also using some kind of a pharmaceutical, you're using something else as an enhancement. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to have that, but if that is something that you are interested in and you're willing to participate in their study. They're trying to see if it helps people go to the next level of, I think, being kinder and gentler and seeing a bigger picture of the world and getting outside of your cares and worries and problems and, that constant thing that there's always something wrong in the world. Well, there you go. That's the information on that. I'll put a link on the website, too. Again, wendyscoffeehouse.com. I put a lot of the extra stuff there. The other thing I ran into that I thought was really interesting, George Knapp, he's a reporter in Las Vegas. He covers all the fun stuff, the UFO stuff. He's from the beginning has had some really interesting experiences. One of them that he details in the Skinwalker Ranch story, the saga, is following what happened with the people who were there as part of that research investigation. And then as it turns out, in retrospect, what they think and that they have come to the conclusion about is that they were actually doing research on the people who participated. So they wanted to know their heart rate. They wanted to know their health issues, if it increased or decreased or whatever, because they were encountering some very, very frightening things. And a lot of it, if you're familiar with that Skinwalker Ranch story, there's no explanation for. Even things like seeing a large dog that was larger than any dog we could account for that just disappeared, ran off and disappeared, no tracks, nothing, just all of a sudden gone. Orbs that did strange things and sometimes really horrific things to the animals in that space. So this is an incredible, and he co-wrote the book about Skinwalker Ranch. It's going to be on the History Channel, I believe March 30th or 31st is the date for the show. And so I've seen people commenting, is this a good idea? We already know there's a bunch of weird stuff happening there, and do you really want to go and be on site when you know what's happened to other people? Well, okay, Native Americans won't go near it. That might be a clue. But no, they're going to do a show there, so we'll see how that works out. But George Knapp, back to where I started before I went off for that wild tangent, has talked to somebody else recently who had a really amazing mind shift, Deep Prasad, and I put this on my other blog, for Conscious Living, because he posted it, of all places. This is like where you go reveal your innermost secrets and thoughts. Twitter. I love Twitter. It's so much more interesting than Facebook or anything else out there at the moment, because you get a little bit of everything. It's a live stream. And I know there are other sites. As a matter of fact, I've got something here that was posted on TikTok that's a sighting, a commercial pilot who films the stuff he sees as he's flying. And I think it's down in South America. I think Medellin was where he was. He posted the video of something alongside the plane, and they're going, oh, it's just a weather balloon. It's nothing weird. It could be a UFO. We don't know. But he posted it. Thank you. So then we can talk about it. Maybe it is or isn't. We don't know. Like the UFO things that flew over Kansas City, and everybody said they were weather balloons. Well, the one that flew over my house was right at the tree. And it was what I can only describe, and I reported it because who knows where this stuff might go, as a darting shadow. And somebody told me there's something like a Mothman that's flying around Kansas City. They're unexplained sightings. They've had them in Overland Park. And Margie Kay from Missouri MUFON's following up on some of this stuff. They have Facebook groups and all sorts of stuff trying to figure out what people are seeing. And the problem is we all have different mindsets. We have different ways of describing what we're seeing. And when I say a darting shadow, I meant it was a cloud-like object, like, if you did an eraser on the paper, it's that color gray. And I look up there, and it is that gray thing, and all of a sudden it seems to quickly, why I would say darting, move out of my view. Not very far, just over to the tree. And then I look away, and it seems to have moved back out because I look back over, and there it is again, and it moves away. So it's very much like it knows I'm looking at it and trying to see what it is, which is what happened to the UFO I saw in the bedroom. As soon as I tried to sit there and focus and remember the number of lights, the color of lights, and the configuration and stuff, it vanished outside the window, and I could see the light through the slats of the mini blinds, and I knew there was no way I'm going to be able to photograph it. It doesn't want to be seen. And it was surprised that I saw it, but the dog barked, and that's how I knew it. So anyway, yeah, okay, so I have to say I've had these experiences. I'm not a tire kicker. I have to say that, yes, for me, some of these things are way too real. And the only way we can figure out what's going on, aside from having scientists with credibility and, long letters and numbers behind their names actually get interested and lose their credibility by saying they're interested, study it, is to do the boots on the ground, real people explain, this is what happened to me. And when we start sharing that, we can connect dots and compare notes and see if there's any kind of synchronicity. And then maybe we will be able to explain and predict what's going on. But for now, we're just comparing notes and saying this is how it went for me. And that's why I wanted to talk about George Knapp's interview with Deep Prasad, because he's a physicist. a young physicist, has his own company, is interested in all sorts of really mind-bending things, and then he had a UFO encounter. Not a UFO, actually an ET in his room. They stood on his chest and blew his mind. All right, so we're going to talk about that. Why? Because it's real. It happened, and it's part of our reality that doesn't make the headlines. The headlines are okay, and coronavirus is all over it. But right now, there are other things also going on that it might help us pay attention to, and we could get outside this little self-imposed physical reality box where nothing is going to change until we change the mindset that puts the box together. And that's what the ET, UFO, ghost, paranormal, Bigfoot, missing people with no explanation stuff is suggesting. That there's more going on here that we can't explain. It doesn't mean it isn't happening. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. I can see I'm not going to have time for the Bigfoot stuff. Well, you know what? That's just the way it goes. That's why I do more than one show. Deep Prasad. All right, this is the guy that George Knapp interviewed. George Knapp, the reporter from the TV station in Las Vegas, who has all the really cool news. Anyway, he has released just recently an interview that they didn't air at the TV station. So it's on his website, Mystery Wire, so you can check that out. But when I saw this first tweet and the information that Deep posted, and it was like a Thanksgiving tweet, and all of a sudden it was on fire. And he wrote, "It's Thanksgiving. This is going to be a rather complicated post. It's also objectively not a good idea for me to write it, given every scientist has a target on their back in the UFO community. Rightly so, and given that I am still a tech CEO." Okay, so what happens is he gets, and it plays out in 30 tweets, he gets into the details about how an experience for him changed his entire overview of life. So he said he had, and this is back in early 2019, he said, "Near the beginning of the year, I had the most absurd, world-changing experience of my life. It happened in broad daylight, 9:40 in the morning in my home. More specific details will be for another time, and when I have a better safety net and expand more." Okay, daytime. This isn't all about spooky nighttime. Everything is boo-hoo. Okay, it's real. It's 24/7. It can happen anytime. And he says, to put it simply, I was paralyzed against my will, could not move, saw 3 entities that had no chill. Could I be crazy? Sure. Do I think I am? Obviously not. Could this have been a hallucination? I can't prove it wasn't, or I wouldn't be so worried about sharing this. These entities projected hundreds of thousands of sentences and paragraphs in a language that looked like a marriage of Japanese and Egyptian hieroglyphics. I was terrified, and I could barely move, and I was in complete disbelief at what was happening. I'd go back and forth in between, convincing myself that I was having some sort of a seizure or had fallen unconscious and there was no way this was happening, to downright fear, realizing that it all felt realer than reality. I was scared, I couldn't move, and was not in control of the situation, yet could think perfectly straight. My mind was racing. These things are real. Is this really happening right now? Is my family and friends ready for this? If it happens to them, are they going to kill me? How do I convey that? I don't want to die, and I'm not a threat. Okay, so this is the tweet storm. And it's like, OMG. Yes, from a physicist. All right, you can get the whole story from him, but here's a little up from the interview with George Knapp. And he says, I'm going to ask you about your experience. What was it that drew you to the topic, your experience, or were you really interested? I'm going to ask you more about the experience in a minute, but that's what he wanted to know. Was this something new? He said, I was already interested, Prasad said, but not nearly as much as I was after the experience. So I had taken on an interest about 3 months before it happened, and that's why, so by the way, my first tweet, I was on Twitter before this whole UFO stuff. I was tweeting about all sorts of like venture capitalists and you know, just physics stuff, and that was it. And this was the first time that I put it out. And he said he put a tweet about Bob Lazar and the Lazar truth, and I said, like, stigma is for chumps. And that's what I said in the tweet. So he said, you can imagine the response. And George Knapp said, yeah, I can. Okay, when it happens to you, the world changes. So that's what happened with this. And to give you an idea, I went on Twitter to find out, just to give you an idea of what the current stuff he's posting on. And he pinned the tweet and about his story written on Medium. But he also has, and this is why Twitter is so interesting, Ben Lamb, who says a standing ovation for Hypergiant. This is, and there's a story at Vice, serious government agencies, serious firms, serious Fortune and Fortune 500 companies. Clout, probably part of why Hypergiant's R&D division can now take a risk on something farther out. UFO research. Oh, yeah. So we go look at Hypergiant. Hypergiant is advertising tomorrowing today. Fourth industrial revolution of machine intelligence is real. I'm thinking Philip K. Dick. Wow, it will define which businesses live and die in the next decade. And the first casualties will be those who fail to adopt and adapt. Those are fighting words. The Borg. They're right around the corner. Welcome to a machine revolution driven by human intelligence. Hypergiant Industries is the AI industrial complex for leading global enterprises and governments. We help major institutions innovate with breakthrough machine intelligence-driven technology. Solutions, products, companies we create support our customers on their mission to speed norms, beyond norms, and realize an exploded potential on the future we were promised through AI. A Better World, narrated by Bill Nye. Okay, so there you go. Deep Prasad isn't a lightweight. And the people he pals around with are innovators, creators, self-motivated, and they see the bigger picture. UFO isn't frightening. It isn't a stigma. It isn't something to be ostracized and shamed about, all right? Beyond that, on this page, they advertise exploring possibilities in problem solving, working abstractions in sensory enhancement, investment strategy for the future, bringing artificial intelligence to the universe. So these are the kinds of things that people who have these experiences are curious about and are active in the communities that are the movers and the shakers, the innovators, the next gen developers and discoverers and explorers of reality. And I think that is so fascinating. So with that, I wanted to include more information about AI. And that's why I started posting the science fiction, the short film science fiction stories on the website to keep the conversation flowing and moving forward beyond just the typical spooky, paranormal, scary stuff. However, I think the spooky, paranormal, scary stuff also has a very, very important part, because what it does is it says and it shows and proves that what we see is a very tiny bit of our reality. And there's more going on behind the scenes that we are not able to, not for lack of wanting to or trying, discern. That's what's so important about it in developing your own intuition, your awareness, expanding your ability to focus beyond just what you're looking at in the moment and say, what's behind this picture? What else is happening? How did this come into being? And when you have a mind shift, whether it's a ghost, like there I am painting in the room and, my own thoughts, and all of a sudden a voice that sounds very much like my husband says, babe, can I get you something? And I know he had just told me that he would have headphones on. He wouldn't be able to hear me if I wanted to talk to him. And then all of a sudden, here he is saying something to me. And what's really interesting about that, about 15, 20 minutes later, that's exactly what he did. He came up and said, can I get you something? I'm like, ah. So then you go back. Was it a time shift? He said, are you sure maybe you didn't have a premonition that's what I said and that's how it happened? And I said, it wasn't a premonition because it didn't happen the same way. It wasn't identical. It was the same tone, the same phrase, the same voice, but there was a different, the word, there was a difference in between hun and babe or something like that. But it was fascinating that did happen the way that it did. And for me, a lot of these things, like one time I went into a house that was, we were curious if they were going to sell it. And this has been about 20 years ago. And the person I was with was deaf, so he couldn't have a normal conversation very quickly, and it would take a little more time. So he sends me in to go into this house, and the relatives are all there divvying up the property because the person is deceased, and they're all there ready to close out the house. I go in, and this is when you deal with ghosts, and it's really not so fun. I got hit, and it took 3 hours for this. It's a psychic attack. It was a massive energy burst that gave me a headache, and because I was interrupting. And the ghost was not happy. I had not asked permission. I was interrupting. This was a happy, clan appearance. The whole family's there. And I got a very, very clear message about since I have these abilities and I have this awareness And believe me, it's not 100%. But I need to be more cautious about the kind of things I put myself through and force myself into, because logically I should be able to do this and I'm helping somebody else. But maybe because of this, in my way, awareness, I need to remember that I can't do some of these things because I'm too sensitive to it. It's a mind shift, okay? Just like Deep Prasad had. Once you have these awarenesses, your world changes. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO. I might have time for Bigfoot. KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Yeah, I do have time for Bigfoot. Okay, we're going to get there in just a minute. First, the headlines you don't see everywhere else. And you might have, all right, because this is really a good headline. 62-year-old Marine sets world record, holds plank for over 8 hours. I saw the picture, the face picture. It's like, oh, wow. Stone. Anyway, that's one of those headlines that was worth looking at least a couple times. The other one, though, is with people wearing all these masks, the face masks and stuff, there's been problems because if your phone has a face recognition, then it's an issue. So with coronavirus and other types of issues to wear a face mask for, they have now come up with, if you have the need, you can get a print of your face. And they show it. This is the print your face onto a mask so you can still unlock your phone. And then you put on a little ribbon. Okay. Really? See, this is the stuff it's somehow under the radar, but definitely worth checking out. And then there's the other one. The guy makes a 20-mile-per-hour Lego gun that shoots 6 playing cards per second. I really need one of those. Why? Well, I don't know, but I'll figure it out when I get one. 20 mile per hour. Yeah, this is one of the websites I like to check out. The UFO conference coming up in Kansas City. Mysteries of the Universe conference is May 15th through 16th. And it's the Ararat Shrine Temple, and they've got a laundry list of topics. Underwater UFOs at the Great Lake. I had no idea, but just some of the things you might gloss over. That's one of the topics. Of course, unexplained phenomena of all kind, abductions, mysteries at the Board Camp Crystal Mine. We're going to get back to that in just a moment. Fast movers and how to get photos, because that's the problem when they're moving that fast, and it's a UFO thing. How are you ready? Now, what I can say is that when it happens, you don't always have a camera. And when you do have a camera, people, even when they're looking at this, saying, I was so shocked that I was trying to process it. And the last thing I thought about, and listen to this, the last thing I thought about was taking a picture. And being in that position, when you see something like that, and like the UFO I had in the bedroom, I would love to have taken a picture. But my mind was so busy trying to wrap it around the fact that I was seeing something that we say doesn't exist. Not only does it not exist, it doesn't look like that. It wasn't one of these things that you see pictures of. It was like a dinner plate size with green and red lights on it, looked like little light bulbs. And when you see the UFOs that have those bulbs that hang out from underneath of them that look like these giant orbs, okay, well, that's what it looked like. And they're green and red. And I called it a Christmas tree UFO. And that's all I could think of. But I'm telling you, when those things happen, the first thing isn't, I'm going to go get my camera. The first thing I like is, what am I seeing? Your brain is taking a deep six of going through all the files of how does this compute? And so that's the problem when we want people to bring us pictures and show evidence, that it isn't as easy as, oh, look, I've got my cell phone, I can take a picture. First, you're frozen because you're trying to figure out and get your brain to actually cooperate with doing something fluid instead of just standing there going, wow, okay? So it's like Ingo Swann when he had the experience, and he writes about this in Penetration. There's an updated version of Penetration. It has another chapter in it. I think that chapter is about the remote viewing of Mars. It's worth getting. Also going to have a new book by Ingo Swann. His the estate has given me, and it's on psychic children's developing psychic abilities. And this is something that was not published while he was alive. So it's something that was in his archives, ready to go, and they've got it coming up. And I'm looking forward to this, so I'm kind of spacing out right now. But anyway, so he went to see what they wanted him to see without telling him what he was going to see. And when he did see it, it was a UFO that was a diamond-like UFO coming out of nowhere, out of nothing, just appearing like it came through a portal or something. And the first thing he did was try and figure out what the heck he was seeing. And when they asked, so what was your impression? He's like, excuse me? Excuse me? The next time you decide to fry somebody's mind and you want them to have an impression, you need to give them an advance warning so they could actually be coherent and fluent with a little bit of preparation, because that isn't what happened. And so he said, there's no way. He said, I need a second shot. They said, well, this was the only one we had. So there went that. But that's what happens when we experience these things up close and personal. Now, the other thing, telepathic communication with ETs, alien healing, speakers. I don't have the speaker list, but just to give you, and the Kansas City Lights UFO cover-up. Don't know about that. We'll find out. And Margie Kay is going to come in and talk about some of this stuff that's coming up at the event. Again, it's local. May 15th, 16th, Mysteries of the Universe Conference. And the Board Camp Crystal Mine people are going to be there. That's why I wanted to get into this. Bigfoot. And I did not know when I went to Board Camp Crystal Mine that I was going to be dealing with Bigfoot. I thought it was all about the crystals. And for some reason, I just felt compelled. I needed to go. And I went as soon as I somehow registered that it was available and it was possible, made a very quick trip with my husband down to go crystal digging. And right now they're open for the season. And the reason, if you're interested to go there for the crystals, is because they do have some fantastic crystals, a wonderful energy, absolutely gorgeous. And right there they don't cut the crystals. The crystals are natural. There's a difference, if you're into crystals, between those that have been cut and in some way, shape, or form injured versus those that are just dug out. All right. So Board Camp Crystal Mine also has been featured on Expedition Unknown. They have unexplained tours, and they are exploring things. New things happen every day. They had one point the crystal was placed. They had the picnic table turned upside down one morning. It's upside down, and there are crystals on each of the legs. Somehow overnight this happened. They've seen orbs. They've seen other things that they can't explain. Eye shine, what they call like a Bigfoot thing. There's a really, really fantastic field there that has crystals under all the trees, and they call it the nursery. There's so many things that I learned just by going there and then having a telepathic experience. Those things happen, and I had done other interviews with Kiwani Lapsaritis and his wife Kelly about Sasquatch and UFO encounters. And so I had kind of a little bit of a background, but I did not expect, I wasn't looking for it. So when I went to Board Camp Crystal Mine, and then they say, oh, by the way, this happened just before you got here. See that big log up in the tree? And it's like a 12-foot long log, 3 feet around, and it up 20 feet in a tree. And it happened overnight. So these are the kinds of experiences that make you question and make me curious and make me want to know more. So Cheryl and Orville are going to be here in Kansas City at that event talking about the latest goings on. And I think part of it was she went away. And so as she's away visiting family in California, Orville's experiencing paranormal stuff back at the camp. And she's experiencing paranormal stuff where she's visiting. It's I don't know. They can explain it really. I think from listening to them and talking with them, you'll get the idea that when these things happen, sometimes you think you would be frightened and you would be afraid. And she said, a year or two before, she would have been absolutely, totally petrified if this paranormal stuff had happened when she was out visiting her family in California. But now she's amused and she's curious and she's entertained and she's looking forward to what next, what next. They have had experiences that have totally shifted their way of viewing the world. And even if it's just once, when it gets you to be more curious and more willing to suspend disbelief, it's worth it, because that's how we grow, that's how we evolve, and that's how we learn. We shift our mindset from impossible to possibly improbable, and maybe more possible, just because we haven't gotten there yet. So a lot of it has to do with being curious enough to go to conferences like this and run into people who might shift your mind. Another person, when I was dealing with, it was Marianne Podrowski, who does the ghost pictures. There's one I posted on the website she gave me, and she's got lots and lots of pictures of ghosts. This one happens to be in a hotel, and behind her, there was this full-blown dark shadow in the shape of a guy. There's not, it's that, she's able to get them to manifest. And when you talk with people who have experiences with ghosts, when they're aware of that, and no manifestation yet with the painting experience, and I'm not asking for it, but that's what happens. And it just makes the world a lot more interesting and wonders a lot more possible when we're paying attention and we're open to the potential of being more than just this physical being self. Thank you for listening. I do have guests coming up. You can check out the calendar on the blog, wendyscoffeehouse.com. Till next time, stay curious.
I'm at the football game. I'm at the grocery store. What? I'm at the combination football game and grocery store.
Wait, you're at the football game
What?
and the grocery store?
Nah, I'm at the combination football game and grocery store. Groceries through Instacart, delivered to my door. I don't have to choose between football and the grocery store.
Ay, mija, abuelita's on her way and I still need to shop for the party.
No worries. Let's order through Instacart.
¿Insta qué?
Sí, llama. We can order groceries and more online and get everything delivered in as fast as an hour.
Everything for dinner? Carne, tortillas, limas, plátanos.
Claro. Anything else?
Just make sure the plátanos are ripe.
Get groceries delivered same day with Instacart so you have more time for family. Visit instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply.